Well, hello, Jeanine Cohoon.
Hi, Dirk. How is it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm great.
So you were referred to me by a friend of mine from work.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and you are currently dealing with a very severe form of cancer and fighting like heck. And is that how you would put it?
Yeah, pretty much. That's how everybody around me puts it too. It
Yeah.
doesn't always feel that way, but yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your current situation. What you're dealing with right now.
Sure. It's all kind of one long stream, really. The the first incident I had was 2017 and plain old breast cancer, but it's something called triple negative. At the top of the pyramid for different types of cancer, there's hormonal cancer, which is what most women get and is super treatable, and then there's triple negative cancer. You can also get triple negative ovarian cancer, and that's bad. Uh, we treated it successfully, did surgery, everything was great, walked out, no signs. 9 months later, it came back in my lymph nodes and in my brain in two spots. So we went again. We did radiation this time, and then we also did chemo again, a different kind. And we treated from October to January, checked in March. Everything was great for 5 days. And I popped a migraine on that fifth day that I've never had a migraine before. So that was fascinating. And we did some scans and found a rare, growing less rare by the day, cancer, brain cancer called leptomeningeal cancer. It is always a metastasis from a prior cancer. It is always fatal. And up until about 2-3 years ago, the prognosis for it was 2 to 6 months. So that's what I was initially looking at in March, April of last year. I was referred to a high-end, very specialized physician out of Barnes, which is the big hospital downtown St. Louis. Not sure how big your viewing audience is or how local. And she's been treating me on a particular type of chemo ever since. She kicked me out in April to do surgery and radiation. I was starting to get a tumor in my pineal gland, which is a gland in the middle of your brain that produces melatonin, and that needed to be treated. In order to do that, I had to get a shunt, which is a tube and a drain plug, basically installed in the middle of my brain, which turns out to be absolutely no big deal whatsoever. I thought it was, but everybody else is like, nah, this is normal, it's cool. No, it's not, but not to me. They line a tube through your brain tissue, through the wrinkles and navigation, and stick it right in the middle in a thing called the cerebral aqueduct. And that is what circulates your brain fluid, your cerebral spinal fluid. And that's also where your pineal gland sits. And they plug this tube right in there. And anytime the pressure in my brain grows to be too much, it drains off excess fluid down that shunt, which you can almost see the tube going down my neck. And it goes down my chest. You can feel it. And it loops behind my muscle wall and drains in my abdomen. So just off into my abdominal cavity where it's reabsorbed. 2 weeks after that, I had radiation. So they don't want to do radiation on somebody that hasn't had the ability to release that pressure, or you'll get something called hydrocephalus, which can cause your brain to squeeze out the bottom of your skull and then you die. So that's bad.
Yeah.
And radiation ended up being terrifying, and I can get more into that if you want to ask. I've done it before, and it's really wonderful. Radiation is no big deal. It's easy and normally great. We did that, and shortly after that, I had 2 horrible weeks where I was waiting to find out if I was successful with that treatment or was going to die in 6 to 8 months. And I hadn't really mentally prepared for that. That was probably the lowest I've ever been throughout this whole 3-year period. Obviously, I'm really in a good mood right now, so it turned out great. And I'm going back to treatment with my chemotherapy doctor in that study on the 9th, hopefully. So it's just an adventure every single month right now.
Yeah, yeah. So this is like a study test group kind of thing, or?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a 2nd level study. Studies have several different levels. There's introductory, where it's patients that are in mortal need and animals mostly. Then there's 1st level testing, where it's humans, and they'll have a control group and a they can't do, unfortunately for this cancer, a placebo group because they'll die. So, and studies need to not kill their patients, so otherwise the study fails. So they are testing, and we're testing different levels of chemotherapy. What this one does is it uses a particular type of chemo called methotrexate, used all the time, most commonly for arthritis in very small doses. It just reduces and prevents that joint inflammation. In the case of treating this disease, it has to get past something called the blood-brain barrier, which is a protective, evolutionary measure your nervous system produces to keep things from getting in it. The capillaries to get into your brain and spinal system are so small, chemotherapy molecules, which are great big suckers, can't get in. This one, they give you so much and flood your system that it shoves its way in to your nervous system and your spine and your brain, and is able to treat cancer effectively without causing massive problems. Normally, when you get a chemical like that into your brain, it causes lots of issues, one of which is called just brain toxicity. When your brain feels attacked, and it is being attacked by a chemical like chemo, it produces its own chemicals to defend itself. Those chemicals, unfortunately, poison your brain tissue. So you have poison from chemo and poison from natural defense, and that toxifies your brain and damages your tissue. Were that ever to happen with me, because of this treatment, I would never be able to do any chemotherapy ever again. So that's a very scary topic, but it does happen, and it's something people need to be aware of when they're dealing with medicine directly on the brain.
Yeah, your risks have got to be off the charts, probably in about 20 different directions, I'd imagine.
It's pretty fun and pretty crazy. I get a bag of medicine the size of my head. That
sounds fun, yeah.
Yeah. It's anywhere from 11,000 to 15,000 mgs that they flood into me. So it's this huge, and it's like iodine yellow, and not like the pretty bright red and bright blue colors I've seen before. Bright red is early cancer that they use, or a heavy treatment called AC. And another one is bright blue, and that one's typically used for prostate cancer. So, and then you have bright red or bright blue coming out of your tears and your sweat, and it's crazy for about a day.
Well, you for sure sound like your brain is still working. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always amazed when you talk to somebody who has, adult cancer hits them as an adult, that the amount of learning you've done in the last 3 years is probably exponential about your body and your brain and how it reacts to chemicals and stuff.
Heavy. And mine and everybody else's. I started collecting cancer patients. Anytime my interest switches topics, I'll start collecting people from that. So I've got burlesque dancers and belly dancers and Ren Fair actors, and now it's cancer patients. And I've learned about mine and kidney and intestinal cancer and everything in between. So liver cancer.
No, wait, back up. You started with belly dancers. So were you a belly dancer?
No.
Oh.
Hi, baby. Hi. You want to say hi really quick and then scoot? Hi. All
Hello.
Right. Go see Daddy. That's my daughter, Phoebe.
Okay.
We just turned 7 last Thursday.
Yeah. I'm about to take a shower.
That's
You're supposed to be in there now. Go on. Go. And close the door. Thank you.
Is she on a COVID schedule like my kids are? Like they sleep at weird times and stay up till oh, okay.
She is her father's daughter, so she is solar powered. She's up at 6 and down at 8. It's wonderful.
My 12-year-old son has become a vampire. I asked if he wanted me to buy him a coffin.
That's what happened to mine. He has a son who turns 21 this year.
Okay.
And yeah, that's what they do. That's the teenager right at 12, and it starts getting worse and worse from there. But they still go to school.
I hear you. So how you what was the belly dancer thing about? You said
I was in acting when I was in college, and a couple of private pieces, and then mainly college performances. And I did a touring company for a little while, and then I went to the St. Louis Renaissance Festival in Wentzville. Mm-hmm. My friends took me there, and then I took my family, and they were so warm and so open that we came back the next year as lepers. We opened the leper colony.
Of course, okay.
It's comedy gold. We were poor college students, and we didn't know what we wanted to dress up as, but they really encouraged that in patrons. So we found a bunch of rags and dyed them with coffee and stuck a bunch of latex on our face from my buddy's theater at his college, and went there, and they immediately welcomed us to cast and invited us. So the next year I went back on cast. I met my husband. I helped with his stage show for a while. And of course there's belly dancers there, and sword fighters and actors and gymnasts and all kinds of stuff. Yes, child.
Is it going to be cold enough to wear my frozen PJs tonight?
No, it's going to be hot, baby.
So did you walk around saying unclean?
Yeah. Yep. We have little bells. And at one point I handed out Leprosy Awareness ribbons.
What color were those?
They were just rags that we cut into strips.
There you go.
So we were just trimming pieces off of our rags, and it was beautifully nasty. It was wonderful.
So I'll have to say I didn't know that coming in, because I don't know if you've watched some of my other podcasts, but I have a BA in theater.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one of my friends that I interviewed in here, Darwin Harris, has been an actor his whole life, and not somebody you've heard of, but he gets jobs and he keeps going and going. He's in movies and films, and so I have I went to I did Cattle Call audition one time. I was in Summer Stock Theater in Wisconsin for a summer.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's when I decided I didn't want to be an actor. So
yeah, yeah. Me too.
There you go.
Insurance. Yeah.
So
I got picked up by a touring company off of the fair circuit, and we went around to Kansas City and a little bitty parking lot fair in central Missouri, and then up to Ontario for 1 or 2 weekends. I can't remember how long I was up there, but those were good times. And we sang dirty songs to drunk people in 3-part harmony. So it was great.
So it's like a touring singing group, or like a performing, kind of like you go to Six Flags and they're in your head, sitting in your lap and kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, our audience was our stage. So we monkeyed on them and were utterly obnoxious, bright neon colors and screaming. So it was fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. So these are the people that you built a support system through, as your friends you've had forever. Is that what you were? Okay. All right. Can you tell me a little bit about that support system? Because I know it becomes so important when you face any kind of trials, but is who you've got built up to support you. But go ahead and tell me about that.
Most of the people that I have met follow the page that I opened up, the For Your Information on Facebook. They follow any of the other updates, and a few that I've put on the GoFundMe page that's also under For Your Information. They were nagging me because I hadn't put updates out there, and there's a lot of people who were in my source of employment at the time, and outside of that, who had left the industry but aren't in social media just because of the nature of their careers. They follow along with that, and they'll ask questions, and they'll be curious, and they'll be concerned, and they'll refer other people they know who've dealt with other kinds of cancer into that. A very good friend of mine named Andrea is that I met through FAIR. She ran the soup kitchen, and she was wonderful at it. She took off and had this magical life, learned how to be a nurse, went to New Zealand for a while, came back into, I think, North Dakota for a little bit, and then finally landed in Michigan. Fortunately, very close to Mayo Clinic, so it's an hour or two drive down for her to see those specialists. And out of absolute nowhere, she developed uterine cancer, and it is terminal. So we've been, or not uterine, ovarian, I'm sorry, ovarian cancer, and hers is terminal, and she's been talking about it and dealing with it as best she can. She and I both work with other people that we talk with. She has a group, and I talk to other patients one-on-one throughout the process, or their husbands, or their best friends. My best friend from high school developed liver cancer, which was wild. 2 of my coworkers from City also developed very serious cancers too. So it's been a roller coaster of talking to people and encouraging them. No, go out and talk to people. Tell them what tests you took to find this out. Tell them what signs you had. What regular maintenance should people get and do to make sure this doesn't surprise them. Mine came out of absolute blue nowhere. I was the first person in my multi-generational family tree with any kind of cancer whatsoever. And 2 weeks after I was diagnosed, my grandmother was diagnosed, and then a month after that, my grandfather was diagnosed, and they both passed away from it. Now, they were in their 90s, but it was still complete shock to my entire family. Not something we knew to look for, certainly not something I ever expected. And it wasn't something I was consciously preparing for or even ready to deal with at any given time. So I was very happy I had the presence of mind to buy our long-term disability insurance, to know how to extend my life insurance outside of my profession and hold it privately. But I was 36. You don't think about that stuff at that point. I just had a kid 4 years before. I'd had a hysterectomy from HPV. I'd had my tubes tied, so I asked my doctor when bad cells came up, can we just get rid of all that? And she said, oh, your insurance will never approve it. Oh, look, they approved it. So on New Year's Eve, 2014, I had that done. Greatest way ever to spend a New Year's Eve. But that's the closest I ever came. Oh, up to my eyeballs undilated with my every need catered to. It was fantastic. But that's the closest I'd ever been. I'd never even broken a bone. So to suddenly have this set in my lap and being told throughout the whole process, it's treatable, it's treatable, it's treatable. Not 0%, terminal. It just went so fast and was so shocking and so unexpected that I would not have been able to prepare if I even had the thought. And now, if I tried to go for disability insurance or AFLAC or any of the things that would have protected me financially, responsibly, my family, I would never be able to. There's absolutely no way. So those are the things we talk about, talk with our friends, talk about on the page. the emotional heaviness of it, and everything in between, so that everybody listening knows this is a big deal and I have to start being an adult before this ever comes up. And hopefully it is a waste of time and money to buy long-term disability insurance privately and to buy life insurance or something like that. That's the absolute hope and prayer, but I cannot guarantee it. That was something I put up there when another very beloved friend of mine developed kidney cancer recently. It's 1 in 10. So 1 in 10 people will get cancer of something and die from it. And I'm very happy to be the one, but I can't say which 10 around me are fine. And that's terrible.
Yeah.
So
3 years ago, sounds like 3 years, 3 months ago,
yeah.
when you found out, what was that like with your family and your daughter at the time?
I found out on her birthday. So this week in June is just hell in a handbasket. Every year it comes up. But this year I was waiting to find out if I was dying on her birthday, and then if I was going to get back into chemo and everything else. That year, the results of my biopsy came back. I do not like any word that ends in opsy anymore. It's never nice. I had spent a week, I think, waiting for that, and we found the lump, and it was about a week to get back in for a full mammogram, and then a couple days to do the biopsy, and then another week to get the biopsy results back. And all I did that entire time was wait till she went to bed and then cry. And whenever I was going anywhere or doing anything, I had vicious speed metal just cranked in the car. My husband redid my stereo when she was born. We didn't baby proof or get a crib or anything. We just tricked out my ride and got tinted windows and stereo and everything else. Remote start, which I strongly recommend for first-time parents. And
Agreed.
I turned up the bass and I turned up everything, and I just slammed Megadeth and Slayer as loud as I possibly could every second that I could, so that I didn't get too deep into what we were facing. And then when I did finally deal with it, I dealt with so many squishy people in the medical industry that I needed that just to get through all these meetings with stuffed angels and bald people with pink everything. And like, no, this is not how I'm doing cancer. So
I get it. A little bit too much happiness and sunshine for you.
Exactly.
It might fit somebody else, but you were coming at it realistic and maybe taking more of a kick its butt kind of attitude.
Yeah, angry. Yeah, I was very angry, and I held on to that, and that kind of dragged me through it. There was one point when I had my first dose, and they give you a metric butt ton of steroids with it. They are meant to help you process it out, help you stay hungry and stay healthy, and also they're a retention. When you take steroids, you get blocked up everywhere. One of those things that it helps hold on to is the chemotherapy. It makes it stay in your system because your body doesn't want it in there. It wants it out as quickly as possible, so it makes it hold in and do its job. It also speeds up your metabolism, so those cells start dividing even faster, and then they can be identified better by chemotherapy.
Okay.
So all in all, steroids are magic when it comes to this, but they're also absolute hell. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't not feel nauseous when I laid down. I was absolutely miserable. And I sat and looked at my 4-year-old child and thought, she doesn't need me anymore. I've never had a thought like that my whole life. I've never had anything close to it. I've had clinical depression before, but I looked right at her and said, I don't need to do this. This is too bad. I'll just die. And that was ridiculous. That was the heaviest, worst thing I had experienced through the whole thing. I immediately went to my doctors and told them about it. Said, I don't know what we need to do, but that can never happen again because I won't come back. And my husband took me by the hair at the next treatment, and we went together, and everything went fine. And the one thing they did that completely saved everything was turn the steroids a lot down. I wasn't taking pills outside anymore, and they reduced my dose as low as they could go, and everything went great. It still was pretty miserable, but instead of walking in circles up until 3 o'clock in the morning and just feeling death warmed over, I was just a meth addict who was a really good parent for a couple of days.
Yeah.
I get all my errands done on Monday, and then I was normal again. So,
I mean, it's good you were able to find the spot in your mind, and your husband too, to drag you to the doctor and say,
yeah,
it has to stop. I mean, you might just keep going down that road and go where it ends.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was perfectly ready to deal with that. And it was a shocking sensation I'd never had before. And I know other people will see that too. So I don't mind talking about it and really looking at that moment again, because it'll come up again, not just for me, but for anybody else who has to go through this, or something similar like diabetes or kidney failure, or anything along those lines. It's a necessary feeling when it comes up. It's a natural feeling to go, I don't want to do this anymore. But you can't stick with it, especially when you're still healthy. I was healthy through the whole thing and managed to have fantastic numbers and be with my family and be responsive, play with my daughter and be with my husband, and not let it completely toxify everything around me. So I managed to kind of insulate her from that impact. As she's gotten older, I've let her be more and more aware. I've kind of realized this is not going to go away anytime soon. So she's 7 now, and she's starting to learn more about what it is. And I've told all her teachers, and they told the counselors at school, and she's really coped with it well. And she's not always nice to me, but she's usually really nice to me about it.
If she was always nice to you, you'd be suspicious about something.
Yeah.
That goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you about for your information, but first, early on, you said that your form of cancer is growing less rare by the day. What does that mean? Because you said it's very rare, but growing less rare by the day.
Yeah, it's wonderful news and horrible news all at the same time. Leptomeningeal is always a metastasis. It always spreads from a prior cancer. It is also completely invisible. The cell bundles that it generates are so small, and it's usually individual cells that we can't see it on an MRI. And in most cases, I had at least one spinal tap before I did this treatment, and you couldn't find it in a spinal tap either. They're so minuscule and so, limited throughout your system that they wouldn't be able to tell a previous cancer patient, oh, you have leptomeningeal, we have to do XYZ. The other issue with it is there wasn't a treatment at all. So if somebody had it, they wouldn't know. They would usually die of it pretty quickly, and people would assume, oh, you died of your cancer that you already had. You had your liver cancer, your bone cancer, or lung, and we didn't even know it had spread to your cerebral spinal system until after you had passed. Most of the time when this was discovered, if it was discovered, it was post-mortem. So it was very much under the radar and didn't show up anywhere that we could see. The only reason my doctor saw it is because they knew what to look for, and they saw minor swelling and irritation in my meninges, which is where these go. That's the lining of your brain where it exchanges with your blood to get nutrients in there. And unfortunately, your spinal fluid is a paradise for bacteria, fungus, and cancer cells. They're all hungry, and spinal fluid is full of oxygen and sugar. It is a wonderful place for bad things to grow. So now that we know what to look for, and now that we are treating cancer patients of other diseases in a way that they can live longer and have more success with their disease, we're finding more and more of this. It's having more time to spread and show up. So, and then we're able to treat it more often.
Yeah. So it's something.
Still not,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I would say we're learning to diagnose it, is what it sounds like.
Yeah,
So
we're learning to diagnose and see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
kind of in the same way, our COVID infections were going up as we were able to test more. It's kind of
exactly
not exactly the same, but we can find
it can be, unfortunately.
Yeah. So tell me about For Information. You started is it just a group on Facebook, and not just, but what is that about?
I did an interview with a reporter from local news who does little segments similar to this one. And he encouraged me to be more open about it. And he also said, you need to start several platforms. You need to have these things out there. You need to start a GoFundMe. You need to start a presence on Instagram and Twitter. And I had already opened this because my first bout of cancer, I would title my postings about it with for your education or for your information. And they were just FYIs of, this is what I'm dealing with. This is the medicine we're using. This is where I'm going. This is how it feels. And I wanted a formal place to do that. I wanted it to be a public presence. My personal Facebook is private. This one is open to whoever wants to come in and see it. And I wanted it to be a source for other people to come and put their own experiences and their own information. I follow another group that has a website and a blog, and they do the occasional video blog like this called Cancer Grad. They are wonderful, and you can do a bio and an interview and occasionally contribute material for that group. And I loved that idea, and I loved what they were doing. So I wanted to kind of have a simpler version of that that's a bit more accessible. I encourage anybody who comes to me with cancer to go to them because it makes you feel good to talk to them about it and talk to others. And then it's also nice and it's validating for me, and it's information that people are sharing out there. It's old friends of mine from high school and people from India I've never met, all interacting and asking about it. So as soon as I opened it and found a home for all of those things that I wanted to say when I was in treatment and that I was learning, it sort of blossomed from there. And that's where I've created all the information piles, and then I take them and I throw them on all of the other media sources that I use. So it's been fun and I love it.
That's good. It definitely keeps you engaged and maybe keeps you looking at things from more of a logical sense, and you don't want to bury your emotions, but if you can figure it out
Exactly.
and understand what's going on, maybe that helps.
Yeah. And I've done some pretty dark processing on there. I need to do a little bit more. But it's very therapeutic, and I'm an attention whore. So I love the focus and the group and watching the member number go up. And then at the same time, I like capturing people who are having completely different experiences or are enjoying mine and going, I have that too, or this is what happened to my mom, or things like that. I love doing that. So it's been a source of enjoyment for me.
Yeah, that's a big reason why I'm doing this, is just, let's get our stories out there, because there's somebody can relate to everything or find inspiration from everybody's story. So instead of some of the garbage we tend to click on the internet.
Yeah. which is still fun.
It is still fun, but you're like, why am I going through 30 photos of I
Or
don't know.
watching 7 cat videos in a row.
Yeah. So, what are some observations of yours that you would share, or what is something that you'd like to get out there regarding what you've gone through, what you've been through? You've already said some stuff, but is there anything else?
I guess the thing that I've been trying to focus on more than anything is you're never ready to die. It's just, that's something you just have to absorb. But you have to be ready for it at any given second. Yesterday, I was in a 3-hour traffic jam because someone died on the highway. There was a nasty accident, and it was not a good way to go. And I was so happy to be stuck in the car with my kid for 3 hours, not that guy. And with this disease, it's not so much of a thing now because of the shunt, but I can still have an aneurysm or something like that, or it can crawl into something vital and just drop. So I have to be prepared everywhere else that I can to make that easier for my family, to make it easier for me in those last seconds, and at the same time, not obsess over it the entire time I'm going. So make your preparations, make sure you're ready, make sure the people you love are prepared and cared for, and then let it go. And live as hard as you can, as much as you can. Make your bucket list and cross things off of it because you can. My girlfriend Andrea was told she'd be dead within that year, and that was 2 years ago, I think now, maybe last year. And she's still going strong. She's back on chemo again. And I don't see anything soon, but she was told, you're not going to make it. And I was told, you're not going to make it. But we're still here doing fun things and planning camping trips and making soup and going, to New York State, stuff like that. So there's still things to do and still life to enjoy, so long as you're not leaving anything uncared for. So that's the one thing I like to try and talk to people about, because I was raised by a wild pack of attorneys and in the woods of Southern Illinois.
All right.
My mom is an estate attorney. She
Okay.
retired a couple years ago, but I would listen to this from her for her wealthy clients who were also corporate clients of the firm she worked for, normal people who needed this kind of organization with wills and living testaments and things like that for our family. It's a really important thing to get settled. And if you don't take care of it, it's just going to be a stressor for you during a time when you don't need stressors. So that's been my thing, is just prepare for things you're not prepared for. And you'll never be prepared for it. You'll never want to die. You'll never be excited about it. But if you're ready for it, it's not so bad. And then Andrea's on the converse is get tested, get checked, see your doctor every year, do the things you're supposed to do. Because this came up on me by complete surprise. The lump in my breast grew in 3 days. So these things happen like that. And if you're not looking at it and getting it checked out, having it sneak up on you is not something anybody's ready to deal with. So those are the messages we're trying to get out there as much as we can. So
I heard, stop thinking about what you're gonna do and what you want to do, and just do them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And hey, you're in a traffic jam, but guess what? You're able to be in a traffic jam. So
yeah. And my kid
chill
had
out
her
a little
tablet
bit.
with her, so she was joyous. She couldn't have cared less.
Yeah. Well, Jeanine, I really appreciate your time today, Jeanine, and I'm really glad I had a chance to meet you and talk to you.
Yeah,
And if you guys, so anybody can look for your information on Facebook and find you out there.
absolutely. Please do so. I've got tons of material planned that I'm still dragging my heels on. I have a piece on different types of cancer and the advances they're making with that. And I also have a planned thing that I need to get the links back for on marijuana usage in this disease. So those
Well,
are.
Wait a minute. Okay. We're not done. So is marijuana usage linked to this cancer?
No.
Or, okay. Just provides relief maybe, or?
No. It's marijuana usage is something that is very heavily discussed in the cancer community. And one of the things I've leaned on more than anything else is if my doctors aren't prescribing it, I'm not doing it. And right now, I will tell you too, if you ever meet an oncologist, or God forbid you have to see one for this or something like it, they would trade their massive salaries and years of experience and reputation to be able to hand you a joint and a banana and say, there, you're cured, and send you out into the world. Doesn't work that way. It is thought to help with some symptoms that come with it, like appetite suppressant and nausea. We have prescriptions for that already that are safer. And in the meantime, it's a carcinogen. So that's kind of counterproductive. Is how I see it, especially if you inhale it.
Yeah.
All you're doing is exposing your lungs to a carcinogen that's going to cause lung cancer, and does. So it helps. As far as I've been able to document, the best healing that it's able to do is swelling. So rubbing it on arthritic joints, in topical creams that are absorptive, like icy hot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That works. But
that's not the marijuana, right? That's the
that is
what's the 3 letters, right?
CBD. Yes.
There you go. Thank you. We're big into this.
Yeah.
So
it's
So you're saying do it by brownie rather than smoke it? Is that? I'm sorry.
If you enjoy it, do whatever you enjoy.
So
it doesn't help with this.
Is marijuana an appetite suppressant? Is that what you said? I thought it gave you
It's an appetite increaser. So
okay.
When you have cancer, sometimes you don't want to eat anything.
Gotcha.
You're nauseous. And some people have an anti-nausea benefit from it. Others don't. I would much rather take my anti-nausea meds than have that fishiness. And at the same time, I want to have some control over my appetite. I already have an issue with that. I have no cancer patient weight loss whatsoever. So, which is annoying, but it's not, it doesn't work well enough that I would be interested or willing in going to that level.
Okay.
So, and it's still illegal here is the other issue I run across.
Unless you have a prescription, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Which you're not going to get from my oncologists. So.
And that just happened last November, I think was when, so before that it was illegal, period.
Yeah.
Well, Jeanine, that took a turn I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. Yeah, I still have to get my evidence piled back and my stuff from the CDC and the Lung Association. But when I have all that scooted together, I'll have that presentation ready and a few other things on how we do.
Excellent.
So.
Well, I really enjoy spending time together, and boy, good luck. And like I said, fight like heck, and just stick around for a long, long time. How about that?
That's the plan. We'll see.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Jeanine.
Thank you.